Hi, I'm Stan Munslow of Stan Munslow Studio in Coventry, Rhode Island. We're talking about better and different guitar chords. And in the first video, if you caught that, we talked about different ways you can modify a chord to make it prettier, more modern, or sometimes more intense. But what I want to talk about today is how to make chords sound cooler. And I mean that just the way it sounds, to make your music sound a little more cool than just the plain old happy chords such as A or D. And the way to do that is with 7, also known as dominant 7. That's kind of the old-fashioned term that you still hear people use. But a plain old 7th chord is your option. You have every permission to use 7s, whether the music asks for it or not. As I said on the first video, the only line you can't cross is if it says major, you can't play minor. And if it says minor, you can't play major. But you can add a 7 whenever you like it. There might be a few cases where you try and you say, no, I'm not really liking it in this particular instance. But those are anomalies. Almost all the time, you will like the effect. It's just a matter of how cool you want the music to get. So, you may know some of these chords, but let's go through them. I can take A, and if I make the 3rd string open, there's a 7. Now 7th chords actually provide 2 jobs. They are cool, but they also create instability in the music, which means the listener wants to hear what's next. So you'll notice if I play regular A, it just sounds happy. If I change to A7, it sounds like it wants to go somewhere. So A7 is a variation that's totally within your permission to use. And if you like the A7, you can also release the 2nd string. That's an upgrade of A7 called A9. Alright, that's a really nice variation to regular A. Okay. Now, C. Plain old C that sounds like every farmer song. That kind of sound. If you add the little finger onto the 3rd string, there's C7. A lot of people call this the Beatles 7. The Beatles used to love this fingering. And what's really nice about C7 that makes it very special is that if you lean your 1st finger down just enough to block out the 1st string, you now have what's called a closed fingering, and this C7 can turn into every other 7th chord. You just have to slide it up. C sharp 7, D7, D sharp or E flat 7, E7, F, and so on. You probably don't want to take it too high up the neck if you don't want your guitar to sound like a ukulele, but you can move a C7 to many different places, so it's kind of special. It's called a closed fingering. D becomes D7. You notice now I got my 1st finger on the 2nd string. Again, it's got that bluesy sound and a destabilized sound. It wants to go somewhere. If you like that chord, you can release the 1st string and get D7 with a 9. D9 they call it. So when you see the number 9, it always means that there is a 7 in the chord. It's just the way it's been. It's just a little way of doing things that has been very popular for decades now. So D9 is really D7 with a 9. Okay? E. There's 2 ways you can make a 7. You can either release the 4th string. That's certainly the easy way out. It's great for blues. Or you can add your finger back on, add your little finger onto the 2nd string, a little stronger. Alright, so there's another E7. Now G, very easy way to make that one a 7. Make the 1st string go to the 1st fret. Like that. Now there's one other G7 I'm going to throw at you. This one's very different. Very, very different. You got the 6th string. You're still blocking that 5th string out as always. You got the 4th string. Now listen to these notes. That's actually called G13. And again, when a number that's higher than 7 is in a chord's name, it implies that there is a 7 in the chord. So that's also a G7, even though we call it G13. So have some fun with these chords because they can definitely coolify the music, and you don't need anybody's permission but your own to at least try it in different instances. I'll just play you one quick example. Let's say you had A going to D. Probably the happiest chord progression in the world. Let's watch what happens if I just switch the D to a D7. Alright? A little different. One more example like that. Here's E going to A. Very happy. But if you switch it out to an A7, or maybe E to A9. Very different mood, but you don't have to worry about that chord hurting your music. Remember, 7s, 9s, 6s, all of those numbers that you can see in a chord, they just affect the chord's mood, not the chord's function. That's what you don't want to mess with. An A7 is still an A. Right? A G6 is still a G. So have fun with the 7 chords, and we'll see you next time. Stan Munslow with Stan Munslow Studio in Coventry.